Hi, I'm William, and today I want to tell you about the moment I stopped being invisible. About the Sunday morning when I walked into a church and watched 17 years of silence finally catch fire. The thing about being erased is that it doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual, like rust eating through metal so slowly you don't notice until the whole structure collapses. One day you're dad, the next you're just the guy who pays the bills, and then finally you're nothing at all, just a ghost haunting your own life story. I should start at the beginning. Back when I still believed love was enough, I met Rebecca at a community center in Portland, Oregon. Back in 2007, she had this 9-year-old daughter named Sophia, with dark curls and suspicious eyes that followed me everywhere like I was a puzzle she couldn't solve. Rebecca was recently divorced, working 2 jobs, drowning in a life that had stopped making sense. I was a firefighter, 38 years old, never married. The kind of woman who wore boots to weddings and kept her promises. When I proposed a year later, Sophia didn't smile. She stood in the doorway of Rebecca's cramped apartment, arms crossed, and said, "Does this mean you're staying?" Not excitement, not hope, just a question from a kid who'd learned that people leave. I knelt down, looked her in the eye, and said, "I'm not going anywhere." I meant it. God help me, I meant every word. The early years were hard in that grinding, exhausting way that tests whether you're built for the long haul. Sophia wouldn't call me anything, not Mum, not William, just avoided using names altogether. She'd leave rooms when I entered, roll her eyes when I offered help with homework, treat every kindness like a trap. Rebecca would apologize with tired eyes, whispering that Sophia just needed time. I gave her time. I gave her 17 years. I showed up to every parent-teacher conference when her biological mother, Amanda, couldn't be bothered. I sat through school plays where Sophia pretended I wasn't there, clapping anyway. When she got her first period at 12 and panicked, Rebecca was working a double shift, so I drove to 3 different stores at midnight, finding the right products, knocked gently on her bathroom door, and left a bag outside without making her explain. She never thanked me. But the next morning, there was a sticky note on the fridge. You didn't have to do that. It wasn't much. But I saved it anyway. Pressed between the pages of a cookbook I never used. By the time Sophia turned 16, something shifted. Amanda had resurfaced, suddenly interested now that the hard years were over. Sophia started spending weekends at Amanda's new place across town, coming home with stories about brunches and shopping trips and heart-to-hearts about things Amanda would understand. Being her real mother and all, Rebecca said it was healthy that Sophia needed a relationship with Amanda. I kept my mouth shut and worked overtime to cover the car insurance increase when Sophia got her license. But I noticed things. How Sophia stopped mentioning me in conversations. How my name disappeared from her social media, replaced by photos of her and Amanda captioned like mother, like daughter. How, during her high school graduation speech, she thanked Rebecca and Amanda for believing in her, and never once looked in my direction, even though I was the one who stayed up until 2 a.m., helping her rewrite that speech 4 times. I told myself it didn't matter. That parenting wasn't about recognition, it was about doing what's right. That's what I'd learned in the fire service. You run into burning buildings, not for applause, but because someone needs to. Then came the engagement. Sophia met Tyler at college, a business major from a wealthy family in Lake Oswego with parents who cared about appearances. Pedigree, the right kind of story. When she called to announce the engagement last March, her voice bright with excitement, she mentioned they were planning a small family dinner to introduce both sides. "You're coming, right?" I asked Rebecca after she hung up. Rebecca's silence stretched too long. Sophia asked if it could just be her parents this first time. Tyler's family is, well, they're traditional. I felt something cold slide down my spine. I am her parent. Rebecca wouldn't meet my eyes. She means her biological parents. Amanda and she trailed off, realizing too late what she'd said. There was no biological father in the picture. He'd abandoned them before Sophia was even born, which meant this was about me, specifically about not being good enough to present to the right kind of people. I didn't fight. I nodded, went to work, let the smoke and heat of burning buildings drown out the burning in my chest. When Rebecca left for that dinner without me, I sat alone in our house, the one I'd helped buy, and felt invisible for the first time in my own home. The Facebook post came next. Sophia uploaded photos from the dinner, Amanda beaming next to Tyler's parents, Rebecca playing the proud almost mother-in-law, everyone dressed perfectly and smiling like a magazine spread. The caption read, "So grateful to have both my mothers here for this special moment." Both my mothers. Not 3 parents, not even a mention. I stared at that post until my eyes burned. 17 years, and I'd been edited out like a mistake, like background noise that muddied an otherwise perfect picture. When I showed Rebecca, she sighed like I was being difficult. "Don't make this about you, William," Sophia's just excited. But it was about me. It was about every choice I'd made to stay, to show up, to be steady when steady wasn't glamorous. And they'd taken all of it and decided it wasn't worth mentioning. The wedding planning accelerated through spring and summer. I kept working, kept quiet, kept funding things. College loan payments I'd co-signed, the new laptop Sophia needed, half the down payment for her car repairs. Rebecca made excuses, said Sophia was stressed, that I should be understanding. I understood perfectly. I understood I was useful as long as I stayed invisible. Then came the invitation list meeting in September. Tyler's parents hosted it at their church, a beautiful stone building in West Lynn with stained glass windows that scattered colored light across hardwood floors. It was meant to be casual. Just both families coordinating who to invite, where people would sit, making sure everyone felt included. I wasn't invited, Rebecca told me 3 days before. Standing in our kitchen where I'd cooked 1,000 meals, her voice apologetic but firm. "Sophia thinks it would be less complicated if I go alone. Tyler's parents don't know about our situation, and she doesn't want to have to explain everything right now." Our situation. Like I was a problem to be managed. "I've been her parent since she was 9, I said quietly. Each word careful, controlled. "I don't need to be explained. I need to be acknowledged." Rebecca's jaw tightened. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." That's when I understood. They weren't going to give me space at the table. They were hoping I'd disappear on my own, quietly, without making a scene. That I'd accept being erased because it was easier for everyone else. I didn't go to that meeting. But something crystallized inside me, hard and cold and clear. I'd spent 17 years being patient, being understanding, being the steady presence nobody noticed until they needed something. I was done waiting for them to remember I existed. The breaking point came 3 weeks later. A Saturday afternoon when Sophia stopped by the house unexpectedly. I was in the garage organizing tools, the smell of motor oil and sawdust thick in the air. When I heard her voice calling for Rebecca, I came inside, wiping my hands on a rag, and found her in the living room looking irritated. "Where's Mum?" she asked, not looking at me. "Your mother's at work. She won't be back until 6. Sophia huffed, dropping her purse on the couch. I needed to talk to her about the seating arrangements. Tyler's parents are being difficult about where Amanda sits. I leaned against the doorframe, something ugly stirring in my chest. "And where do I sit, Sophia?" She blinked, like she'd forgotten I could speak. "What? At your wedding? Where am I sitting?" Her face went carefully blank. "We haven't finalized everything yet, but Amanda's placement is a priority." Sophia's eyes flashed. "She's my mother, and what am I?" The question hung between us, heavy and sharp. Sophia's mouth opened, closed. Then she said the thing that shattered whatever fragile hope I'd been clinging to. "You were never my father." The words didn't shout. They were matter-of-fact, delivered with the casual cruelty of someone stating an obvious truth. "You were never my father." Like 17 years could be dismissed in 5 words. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just nodded slowly, feeling something inside me go dark and quiet, and finished. "Okay," I said. "I understand." Sophia looked almost surprised I wasn't fighting. She grabbed her purse and left. The door closing with a soft click that sounded like an ending. I stood there in the living room, surrounded by photos on the walls. Sophia's graduation, family vacations, Christmas mornings. In every picture, I was there, present, smiling, holding space. And in her story, I'd never existed at all. That night, I started gathering proof. Not for revenge, not yet, just for myself, needing to confirm that my memories were real. I found the hospital records from when Sophia had appendicitis at 13. My name on the emergency contact forms. My signature authorizing surgery when Rebecca couldn't get there in time. I found the co-signed loan papers for her first car. The college application recommendation letter I'd helped her draft. The fire department scholarship fund I'd convinced my chief to give her. I found receipts, records, documents that proved I'd been there, that I'd mattered, even if Sophia wouldn't admit it. When Rebecca came home that night, I showed her everything. "Look at this," I said, voice level. "Look at what I've done." She barely glanced at the papers. "William, you're being obsessive. So what if Sophia said something hurtful? She's stressed about the wedding. She said I was never her father. She didn't mean it." "Yes, she did." Rebecca's face hardened. "What do you want me to do? Ground her? She's 26 years old. I want you to acknowledge what I've been to this family." "I do acknowledge it," she said, but her voice was tired, obligatory. "You've been wonderful, but you can't force Sophia to feel something she doesn't feel." That's when I realized Rebecca had known all along. She'd watched me being erased and done nothing because it was easier to let me fade than to fight for my place. I slept on the couch that night. And the next. By the end of the week, I'd moved into a studio apartment downtown, bare walls and quiet rooms where I could breathe, without suffocating on my own irrelevance. The call from Tyler's mother came 2 weeks before the wedding. Her voice was kind, confused, carefully polite. "William, I hope you don't mind me reaching out directly. I wanted to clarify something. Sophia mentioned you were just a family friend, but I've been hearing different things from other people. Were you married to Rebecca?" I closed my eyes, standing in my small kitchen where morning light slanted through cheap blinds. "I am married to Rebecca. I've been Sophia's parent since she was 9 years old." A long pause. "That's not what we were told." "I know. Tyler deserves honesty in his marriage. So do we as a family." She hesitated. "There's a final planning meeting at our church this Sunday. I think you should be there." I almost said no. Almost let them have their perfect wedding with their curated story. But then I remembered Sophia's face when she said I was never her father, and I thought about burning buildings. About how sometimes you have to let things burn before you can rebuild. "I'll be there," I said. That Sunday. I walked into that church with a manila folder under my arm and 17 years of silence ready to end. The sanctuary was beautiful. Light streaming through stained glass, wooden pews polished to a shine. They'd set up chairs in a meeting room downstairs. The smell of coffee and old hymnals thick in the air. Everyone was already there. Tyler and his parents, Rebecca, Amanda, looking polished and maternal. And Sophia, sitting between them like she'd finally found where she belonged. When I walked in, the room went quiet. Tyler's father stood, extending a hand. "You must be William. Linda told me you'd be joining us." I shook his hand, feeling every eye in the room tracking my movement. Sophia's face had gone pale. Rebecca looked like she might be sick. We sat down, pleasantries exchanged, small talk about weather and traffic. Then Tyler's father cleared his throat. "Before we finalize everything, I want to make sure we have the family dynamics correct. For the ceremony, for the seating." He looked at me. "William, Linda mentioned you've been part of Sophia's life for quite some time." I met his eyes. 17 years. Since she was 9, Amanda laughed, sharp and nervous. "Well, part of her life is generous. William was married to Rebecca, but I'm Sophia's mother." "No one's disputing that," I said calmly. I opened the folder. "But I think there's been some confusion about my role." Sophia leaned forward. "William, don't." I pulled out the first document. This is the hospital authorization from when Sophia needed emergency surgery at 13. That's my signature giving consent, because I was listed as her legal guardian. Tyler's mother blinked. His father leaned closer, reading. I continued, voice steady. This is the co-signed loan for her car. This is the college scholarship application I helped her with. These are the tax returns showing her as my dependent. This is the recommendation letter I wrote for her graduate school applications. With each paper, I laid them out carefully, not dramatically. Just methodically, evidence, proof, truth. For 17 years, I said quietly, I have been Sophia's parent in every way that matters. I showed up. I stayed. I provided. And somewhere along the way, I was erased from the story. The room was silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Tyler looked at Sophia, his face confused, hurt. You told me she was just a family friend. That your parents were Rebecca and Amanda. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. Tyler, I can explain with what? His voice cracked. More lies. Tyler's father rubbed his temple. We value honesty in our family. This is not what we discussed. Rebecca finally spoke. Voice small. We were trying to simplify things. By erasing someone who raised your daughter, Tyler's mother said, her politeness finally slipping. That's not simplifying. That's dishonest. Amanda stood up. This is ridiculous. I'm her mother, and I was her parent, I said. Both things can be true. I looked at Sophia, then really looked at her, and saw not the adult who'd dismissed me, but the scared 9-year-old who'd asked if I was staying. I kept my promise, I said softly. I didn't go anywhere. You did? Sophia's tears spilled over. I just wanted to be someone else's daughter, I finished. Someone more impressive. I understand. But you don't get to rewrite history to do it. Tyler stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. I need air. I need to think. He looked at Sophia, something broken in his expression. I need to know who I'm actually marrying. He left. His parents followed after a moment, his mother pausing to squeeze my shoulder gently. Thank you for telling us. When they were gone, it was just Rebecca, Amanda, Sophia, and me, in that room with the coffee gone cold, and the truth finally out in the open. You had no right, Sophia whispered. I had every right, I said. You made me invisible. I decided to exist again. I stood, gathering my papers, putting them carefully back in the folder. My hands were steady. I felt emptied out, but also lighter. Like I'd been carrying weight, I could finally sit down. Rebecca caught my arm as I passed. What happens now? I looked at her. This woman I'd loved, who'd let me be erased, because it was easier than defending me. Now you figure out who you want to be. Someone who tells the truth, or someone who lets other people rewrite it. I walked out of that church into October sunshine, the air crisp and clean. My phone buzzed almost immediately. Texts flooding in, people taking sides, demanding explanations. I turned it off. I didn't need to explain myself anymore. The truth had done that for me. The wedding was postponed. Tyler needed time. His parents insisted on honesty before any marriage could happen. Sophia called me crying, begging me to fix it, to tell everyone I'd exaggerated. I listened until she ran out of words, then said gently, I love you. I always have. But I can't save you from the consequences of erasing me. Rebecca filed for separation 2 months later. We divided our life quietly, fairly, to people who'd run out of reasons to stay. She kept apologizing, saying she should have stood up for me. I told her she was right. She should have. I don't know if Sophia and Tyler got married. I wasn't invited to find out, and I didn't ask. Some endings don't come with closure. Just the knowledge that you finally told your truth and walked away with your dignity intact. I still work as a firefighter. I still show up, stay steady, run toward fires when everyone else runs away. But now I do it, knowing my worth isn't measured by other people's willingness to acknowledge it. I exist whether they say my name or not. Sometimes, being a parent means loving someone enough to let them face the consequences of taking you for granted. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is refuse to disappear. Just because it would make someone else's story simpler. I was never invisible. I was just surrounded by people who chose not to see me, not anymore.